My name is Grace Whitmore, and this morning, my phone buzzed with a group message I wasn't supposed to be part of. Should we tell her or not? My sister typed. She probably won't show up anyway. The chat was titled Family Christmas 2025. I stared at the screen, my reflection faintly visible in the glass, hair perfectly curled, silk blouse unwrinkled, latte growing cold beside my laptop. From 30 stories up, the city shimmered in soft December gold. Somewhere below, holiday lights twinkled on shop windows, laughter rising from the streets. I should have felt festive. Instead, I felt that old, familiar twist in my chest, a mix of hurt and irony. They banned me from Christmas 2 years ago. Their reason? You've changed, Grace. You think you're better than us now. Funny how independence can look like arrogance to people who only value you when you're small. The next buzz pulled me back, a private message from my mother this time. Sweetheart, your father's medical bills are piling up. Can you help just for now? I let out a quiet breath. The hypocrisy was almost poetic. Banned from Christmas, but still expected to save it. I closed the chat, turned toward the skyline, and whispered to no one in particular. Sure, Mom. Let's talk about help. But this time, it would be on my terms. 2 years ago, I was standing in the same living room I grew up in, the smell of cinnamon and pine mixing with tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. It was Christmas Eve, and my family was mid-fight, the kind that starts quietly and ends with words that can't be taken back. My father sat in his recliner, beer in hand, staring at the television while pretending not to listen. My mother fluttered around the kitchen, trying to keep the peace, and my older sister, Amanda, was the one who said it first. Grace, you've become impossible to be around. You act like we're beneath you just because you moved to the city. I remember laughing not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. I'd been working 2 jobs, saving every penny to finish my degree while they dismissed my efforts as some kind of phase. I don't think I'm better, I said quietly. I just don't want to live the same way anymore. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when it isn't. That's when my father finally spoke. His voice cut through the room, sharp as glass. If you're so tired of us, then don't come next year. We don't need your attitude ruining Christmas. My throat tightened. My mother tried to soften it. He didn't mean it like that, but he did. Every word. I packed that night. Amanda watched from the doorway, arms folded, no apology in her eyes. My mother slipped something into my coat pocket as I left, her grandmother's silver bracelet, worn and delicate. For luck, she whispered. And so you remember where you came from. When I got into my old car, the night air bit at my cheeks, and tears blurred the road ahead. For the first time, I realized what freedom really felt like, not excitement, not triumph, but a quiet, aching emptiness. Still, as I touched that bracelet on my wrist, a strange calm settled over me. Maybe I was walking away from my family, but I was also walking toward something myself. That was the last Christmas I ever spent in that house. The first months after leaving home were brutal. I moved into a cramped studio apartment above a laundromat in downtown Chicago, one window, leaky pipes, and a radiator that clanked like a ghost at night. Still, it was mine. The bracelet stayed on my wrist, a reminder of who I was before everything fell apart. I worked the morning shift at a coffee shop and spent my nights studying graphic design through online courses. My laptop was old, my Wi-Fi barely stable, and my meals mostly instant noodles, but every late night felt like an investment, a quiet promise to myself that this wouldn't be forever. My first real opportunity came through Elena Morales, the owner of a boutique marketing firm. She'd seen one of my designs on a freelance site and sent me a message. You have potential. Let's talk. I nearly cried reading it. Elena became the mentor I didn't know I needed. Sharp, confident, unflinchingly honest. She taught me how to pitch ideas, negotiate contracts, and most importantly, value my work. You don't owe anyone an apology for wanting more, she'd said once, sipping her espresso with that effortless power I admired. Especially not family who mistake your growth for betrayal. Under her guidance, I started taking on clients, small businesses at first, then tech startups, and eventually bigger names. Each project paid a little better. Each success whispered, "You're getting there." But I kept it quiet. When my family called, which wasn't often, I kept my answers vague. "Yeah, I'm managing fine. Still working on a few things."
It was easier that way.
The less they knew, the less they could twist. By year 2, I'd saved enough to launch my own digital agency, Whitmore Creative. I rented a small downtown office, bought decent furniture, and hired 2 assistants. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to check my balance before paying rent. The success should have felt like victory, but sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos, Christmas mornings, messy hair, paper crowns from cracker boxes, and feel that sting of nostalgia. Then I'd glance at the silver bracelet glinting under the desk lamp and remember, I wasn't building this life out of spite. I was building it because I refused to live small. By the time my company's profits crossed 7 figures, I'd mastered the art of silence. No posts flaunting success, no calls to boast, just quiet, deliberate progress. And that's why, when my mother's message arrived this morning asking for help, she still thought I was doing okay. If only she knew just how well okay had turned out to be. 3 days after that message, I invited them to meet me at my office to talk things over. I didn't mention where I worked. I didn't correct my mother when she said, "We'll swing by your job, honey. I hope your boss won't mind." It was a gray December afternoon, the kind where the sky feels like brushed steel. The building's glass exterior mirrored the city's lights as they stepped through the revolving doors. My assistant, Ava, greeted them with her usual warmth, though the confusion on my father's face was almost endearing. "We're here to see Grace Whitmore," my mother said nervously. "Of course," Ava smiled. "Right this way. Ms. Whitmore is expecting you." My father blinked. "Ms. Whitmore," he muttered. I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window when they entered, sunlight catching on the polished edges of the walnut desk, a quiet hum of Christmas jazz floating through the space. A silver-framed photo of me and Elena sat beside my laptop, next to a vase of fresh lilies. "Grace?" my mother whispered, taking it all in. I turned, smiling lightly.
Mom. Dad.
"Amanda." Amanda's eyes darted around the office. The art on the walls, the awards on the shelf, the soft leather chairs. "Whose office is this?" she asked finally, her voice half disbelief, half accusation. "Mine," I said simply. "Welcome to Whitmore Creative." For a heartbeat, silence. Then my father gave a dry laugh. "You're kidding. This whole place. You're saying you run this?" I gestured to the plaque on the wall. Grace Whitmore, founder and CEO. Their expressions shifted, shock, confusion, then something else, shame. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she traced the edge of the desk. I didn't realize how much you'd accomplished," she murmured. "No," I said softly. "You didn't. None of you ever asked." Amanda folded her arms, defensive as ever. "Well, you never told us. You just cut everyone off." I tilted my head. "Amanda, you told me not to come back. Dad made sure I knew I wasn't welcome. I didn't cut anyone off, I just stopped begging to belong." My father looked away, jaw tight. "You think money makes you better than us now?" That line again. It used to sting. Now it almost made me laugh. "No," I said. "It doesn't make me better. It just means I don't need permission to be enough." They all went quiet. Even Amanda's defiance faded into unease. I gestured for them to sit, my voice calm, almost gentle. "Mom, I got your message about Dad's bills. I can help. But before we talk about money, we need to talk about honesty." My father started to protest, but my mother touched his hand, her eyes glistening. "Let her speak." I looked at them, really looked. The people who'd once made me feel small now sat across from me, waiting for my approval. The balance had shifted, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to hold my ground. "When you banned me from Christmas, I told myself it didn't matter," I said. But it did. It hurt, because I spent years trying to earn love that was always conditional. And now that I've built something on my own, that same love suddenly comes with requests attached. No one spoke. The only sound was the faint hiss of the espresso machine in the break room down the hall. I smiled, not bitterly, but with a strange kind of peace. I'll help with the bills. But not out of guilt. I'll help because it's the right thing to do, and because I can afford to do it without losing myself this time. They looked at me differently then, not as the girl who left, but as the woman who refused to break. Christmas might have banished me once, but this year, it was my table they were sitting at. I let the silence settle before I spoke again. The moment was heavy, but I wanted it to stay that way. It needed to. Here's how this is going to work, I said, folding my hands on the desk. I'll cover Dad's hospital bills and pay off the utilities, but I have conditions. Not for revenge, for growth. My mother's brows knit together. Conditions? Yes, I said softly. Because I'm not here to keep enabling the same patterns that nearly broke all of us. I turned to my father first. His pride was written all over his face, a man who'd built his identity around control. Dad, I said, you've worked hard your entire life, but somewhere along the way, that pride turned into cruelty. You don't get to punish people for outgrowing your idea of success. So if I help you, I want one thing in return: therapy. Real therapy. Not a sermon about how you're fine. You owe that to yourself and to Mom. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, he nodded. Just once. I turned to Amanda. You've spent years comparing yourself to everyone else, mostly me. You have a brilliant mind. You just use it to tear others down. So, if I pay off your credit card debt, I want you to promise to do one thing: enroll in that design program you've always talked about but never pursued. Her eyes flickered. That's not fair, she muttered. It's not supposed to be, I said, gently but firmly. It's supposed to be freeing. Then finally my mother. The one who tried to keep the peace, but ended up stitching her silence into every wound. Mom, I said softly, you've spent your whole life trying to please everyone. I know you think that's love, but it's fear. So here's what I need from you. Stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault. And if you ever feel the need to choose between peace and honesty, choose honesty. Every time. Her eyes filled with tears and she whispered, I can do that. I smiled.
Good.
Because that's all I want, not obedience, not pity, just change. I reached into my drawer and pulled out a small, wrapped box. Inside was a duplicate silver bracelet, the same design as the one she'd given me years ago. I placed it gently in her hands. For you, I said. So you remember that love isn't about control. It's about trust. She looked at it, then at me, her lips trembling. Grace, I'm sorry. I nodded. I know. The tension in the room softened. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like me against them. It felt like a negotiation between who we'd been and who we still could become. This wasn't vengeance. It was balance. And balance, I'd learned, was its own kind of peace. A week later, on Christmas morning, my phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't a request or an accusation.
It was a video call.
When I answered, my mother's face filled the screen, soft and flushed from the glow of the tree behind her. Merry Christmas, sweetheart, she said, her voice trembling just a little. Behind her, I caught sight of Amanda setting the table, my father carefully hanging a new ornament, a silver star. Merry Christmas, I replied, surprised at how natural the words felt. It wasn't awkward anymore. There was still distance, yes, but it felt healthy. Earned. My father looked into the camera, hesitant but sincere. I started seeing that therapist you mentioned, he said quietly. Turns out you were right. I've got a few things to work through. I smiled, warmth rising in my chest. I'm proud of you, Dad. Then Amanda leaned closer, rolling her eyes but smiling too. And I registered for that design program. Starts next semester. Don't make a big deal out of it. Oh, trust me, I teased. I won't. But I'm still proud of you. Mom adjusted the camera again, and I saw something that made my throat tighten, the bracelet. Not the one I wore, but the duplicate I'd given her. It gleamed faintly as she reached for her mug of cocoa. I wear it every day, she said softly. It reminds me to choose honesty. You were right, Grace. Peace without truth isn't peace at all. I couldn't stop the smile that spread across my face. That's all I ever wanted, Mom. For all of us to stop pretending. Outside my window, snow had started to fall, quiet, graceful, endless. I leaned back in my chair, the city below glittering with lights, and realized that this was the first Christmas in years that didn't hurt. Not because my family had changed overnight, but because I had. I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. I wasn't chasing belonging. I'd found it, right here, in the woman I'd become. As the call ended, I reached for the bracelet on my wrist, running my thumb over its cool surface. My grandmother's gift. My mother's memory. My reminder of how far I'd come. And in that quiet moment, I whispered the truth I'd waited years to say. They once banned me from Christmas, but this year, I gave myself the only gift that ever mattered: freedom. Bottom of form.